Here on the Animal Intuitive Show, my goal is always to find ways to help our pets live longer, healthier, happier lives. And tonight we're going to talk about an interesting way to do that with medicinal mushrooms. So keep watching and we'll have time for Q&A as well. Dr. Robert Silver is established one of the first veterinary clinics in Boulder, Colorado, way back in 1993. One of the first integrative veterinary clinics, I should say. And he's become a nationally recognized expert in veterinary, herbal, and nutraceutical medicines, medicinal mushrooms, veterinary CBD, and cannabis therapeutics. He has adjunct faculty positions at Lincoln Memorial University, College of Veterinary Medicine, and Shi University, a College of Traditional Chinese Veterinary Medicine. Dr. Silver brings to what is called the Real Mushroom Science team, we're going to learn more about that tonight, 40 years of practical clinical experience treating small and large animals with diet, acupuncture, nutraceuticals, botanicals, and medicinal mushrooms. And Joni Kamlet is a registered veterinary technician and a certified canine rehabilitation assistant through the Canine Rehabilitation Institute. She also has her certification in applied clinical nutrition for humans and through the Life Chiropractic College. And for the past decade, she's worked in the supplement industry, teaching veterinarians and pet parents about holistic options. Her experience encompasses nutrition, canine rehabilitation, Western herbal medicine, functional medicine, laser therapy, energy medicine, and her favorite modality, therapeutic mushrooms. So welcome tonight to the Animal Intuitive Show, Dr. Robert Silver and Joni Kamlet.
Thank you so much for having us.
Good to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. As everyone heard, they have a long list of credentials, so we have a lot to talk about tonight. And we do have our chat open, so if people do have questions, we're going to get to those. I am just going to probably let them, Dr. Silver and Jodi, talk a little bit, and then as we go along, we'll start to pick up your questions if you have any. And welcome everyone tonight. Hi, Mel Mack. Hi, Dan. Thank you for being here tonight. So let's just start off with going back to when you got into veterinary medicine, because I think this is curious that, you're one of the first, it seems like, in this country, maybe even, but way back in 1993, but definitely in Colorado. What got you into this integrative and holistic field, Dr. Silver?
Well, I graduated from Colorado State University's vet school in 1982. And I thought I had all the tools I needed, to beat disease, to really get out there and help those critters. And a lot of what I was doing was very helpful, but I found myself stymied by chronic disease, things like diabetes, and chronic arthritis, and cancer, and epilepsy, and the list goes on, allergies, anxiety. And I was trying to find answers, and I couldn't find the answers within the context of Western medicine, so I started looking elsewhere. And I had prior experience with herbs. I did a lot of survival type of herbal identification and living off of the land type of thing, and foraging herbs and identifying them. So I started looking at herbs as a modality, and I started looking at diet. And I really, knowing what I know now, I barely knew what I was doing. But those therapies are so robust. I mean, especially for animals that are getting nothing but this dried cardboard kibble and nothing else, and being loaded up with tons of drugs. I'm not against these drugs or vaccinations. I think they just need to be used in the right context. But I would see my patients respond remarkably to diet, to herbs. And so it really got me going. So I studied acupuncture, I studied how to do Chinese herbal therapies, and I added on all these modalities, and I didn't stop doing conventional medicine. I think there's a really important need for good quality conventional medicine and diagnostics and reasonable use of pharmaceutical and surgical modalities, but they're appropriate when appropriately used, but blend them in. Blend them in with the herbs, blend them in with the acupuncture, blend them in with all these other modalities which actually enhance the healing of the patient. So that's kind of what got me going, and once I started getting successes, it kept me going, and I think Joni's got a similar story, actually.
Yeah, Joni, how did you end up in this world?
Well, I came in definitely from a different way as from Dr. Silver, although we we agree on, a lot of the same things regarding integrating, holistic medicine with Western medicine. I actually, it happened 25 years ago, back in 1996. I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and I knew nothing about holistic medicine for myself. I just knew when they told me that I had the cancer, they did the surgery, they took a giant 18-centimeter cyst out of me that turned out to be cancerous, and they wanted to go back in and do a complete hysterectomy and stage me from my diaphragm to my bowel and do chemo and radiation. Something in me just said no. I just said no, and I started looking at options. And coincidentally, my dog was diagnosed with mammary cancer at the exact same time. And I started looking into what I was going to do instead of, I knew nothing, but I started researching for myself and using the same things I was doing for myself with my dog. And we both ended up thriving. I'm still here. We both ended up thriving. And my dog lived, she was 9 at the time. She lived to be 18. And that kind of, so back in 1996, I started raw feeding my dog. I started with homeopathy and herbs and natural therapies. And I ended up going back to school to become a veterinary nurse, or an RVT specifically, to go into integrative medicine. So I worked in Western practices that had an integrative vet, but my path was always, when I got into veterinary medicine, I went directly into the holistic side of things, and then got into canine rehabilitation, and now the mushrooms.
So amazing. Wow, what an amazing story. And I'm wondering, because I find this a lot with my clients that I work with, with animal communication or anything I'm doing, massage or acupressure, that a lot of times there is something going on with the animal that's also going on with the human, and it's part of whatever in the universe. It's like a journey, teaching, Do you find that?
I call that the therapeutic pair. And I actually wrote an article about this early on, before 1996 even, when I did that, because it would be amazing. People would come in with animals that would have like chronic kidney disease, and I'd hear that within their family, other family members within that family, I guess that's redundant, would also have some kind of kidney issue. And I found it quite similarly, I think, from an energetic standpoint, that people resonate with the same sort of energy in their pet when they go for that original pet selection. It's something that's probably you're better able to explain than we are. But I think that people, just as with mates, we select mates that maybe bring out our best, but also may bring up some of our old issues, and that we have to work on. So. So that's what I do think that we do see a lot of that, and many times, you have to treat the person in order to treat the pet. If they're, and what do you do when you have someone who is obese, walks into your exam room and has an animal that's obese, and you don't want to have any kind of negative reflection on that person, but you want to be able to help the animal. So it's a very careful path you have to navigate in terms of being diplomatic and kind and trying to get the message across that maybe you could even orchestrate some lifestyle changes in both.
Very interesting. Wow. Are you finding that with the mushrooms that you're working with a certain sort of subset or just certain issues? Or are you finding it's very broad spectrum? What are you using them with?
Do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah. Excuse me and forgive me. I have a tickle in my throat.
Oh, sure.
For your Rob, why don't you take it?
Okay, sorry.
Let me just clear my throat. I'll be right back.
Okay. Could you restate the question, please?
What kind of issues are you finding most people are coming in seeking mushrooms?
So just as with CBD, people have thought that CBD cures everything, and it's quite helpful with many problems for certain reasons. And I think that really created sort of a mindset amongst the consumer, especially in a time of pandemic, in a time of a lot of societal anxiety and stress, And so I think that I think we started to see mushrooms, kind of the door kind of opening for mushrooms once we had gotten things available from cannabis. And so I think it's a natural switch for people to look for the next best thing. So I think we find pet owners who are just looking for something that's going to address their pet's problem that conventional medicine, or maybe the holistic medicine they've been trying, has not been doing a good enough job. And I think, and because of the therapeutic profile that mushrooms have, I think they actually serve a very valuable function in that regards, because they have such a wide array of molecules in them, different molecules that have bioactivity in many different ways, that they really are superfoods. They really are adaptogens. They really, not that they can cure all of these things, but they certainly put the animal's being into a better position for healing. Is kind of a simple way of putting it.
Yeah, and if I can add in, it's so funny you mentioned like things that happen on the show. I haven't coughed all day, and then all of a sudden it's like but what most of the people that find their way to mushrooms, or this is my experience so far, come because they have a pet that's dealing with cancer, and they've heard about, in particular, turkey tail to address it. But there's so much more that mushrooms can do. I mean, mushrooms, basically all mushrooms that are safe for humans are safe for animals. And, they're anti-inflammatory, they're immune system boosters. They, personally, since taking mushrooms, I feel like a vitality in my system. I mean, not just physically, but emotionally, and I would say even spiritually, feeling more vital. And the same can happen with our pets. So I think often, or, I shouldn't say often, initially when people thought mushrooms, they were thinking cancer, turkey tail. And then more recently, people are recognizing that there's a lot more mushrooms out there and a lot more things that they can do. And it's been really exciting to be involved with this. And then with Fantastic Fungi coming out last year, this wonderful movie that really went deeply into mushrooms and was on, you can see it on Netflix. It inspired a whole lot more people to become interested in mushrooms. And they're giving them to their pets. So it's been really amazing.
And COVID, and COVID certainly got a lot of people thinking about ways of improving the immune system. And with a lot of people shut in, they were looking for little cottage industries to get involved with. And as a result, a lot of people are growing their own mushrooms, their own medicinal and edible mushrooms at home. In fact, I'm doing that, and it's really fun. So,
and you also kind of work with this company, or is it your company? I'm not sure exactly, but
no, the company was founded, I think it was 10 years ago now. Joni, is that the
9 or 10 years? Yeah, we might be coming up on 10.
It's a retail spinoff of and it's a Canadian company in British Columbia, and it's a retail spinoff of the company that actually cultivates the mushrooms. So we grow them. And we harvest them, we extract them, we purify them, we triple test them to make sure they're free of contaminants. They're all certified organic. And then so the parent company makes them, and then this company has been making them for humans in capsule form and powders for I think 10 years, and doing quite well. They're quite popular. They're doing very well. And I came to them last year after I had completed one project with one company, and suggested to them that maybe they hire me to help them put together a pet product line. I have a lot of experience doing that. I worked with a company for 25 years developing 40 formulas. They were all my own formulas for veterinarians to use clinically, and very effective. So they said, yeah. And the guy who's the founder of the cultivation company, he and I have become quite good friends over the last couple of 5 years. So it was good. So it's a nice situation. I don't have ownership, but I'm in charge of creating this pet line. And Joni is my right-hand person, because I don't know how I could do this without her.
And I heard that this company was starting a pet line, and I was working for a different supplement company, but had become very, very well, obsessed. I'll just go ahead and say I'm obsessed with mushrooms.
Wow.
And
She's obsessed.
really, truly, I mean, literally, I'm coming to you from Virginia, where I just moved from California. I bought 5 acres in Virginia, with 4 acres of it is wooded, and just so that because I want to get more involved with mushrooms, and there's lots of mushrooms here. But I heard that this company, and I knew they were a very well-respected mushroom company. I loved the quality of their mushrooms. And when I heard that they were starting a pet line, and then I heard that Dr. Silver was going to be joining as the formulator, I basically campaigned for the job. I said, please, please hire me.
Yeah, and that's called real mushrooms, right? That's the name of the.
That's right.
Yes,
Okay. Yes.
real mushrooms.
Yes.
Real mushrooms for pets is kind of our subdivision, you know.
Okay, and I'll have a link. I'll put it there after the show
too.
in the description. So yeah, so people can go and check it out. Check out the website.
Yeah, in our website, it's got a great section on it on education. And because it does take a little bit of a learning curve to kind of learn the language and understand differences and similarities amongst the different types of mushrooms. And so the educational section is very, very good. And Joni and I are continually writing stuff for that. Sometimes it's kind of weary making how much we have to write for that, but it's good. It's good for the pet parents.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I'm wondering, like, if somebody was to be just coming to this completely new and they wanted to find a way just to support their pet before anything, let's just start there, before anything goes wrong. Like, where do you start? Maybe help people understand a little bit about the basics of mushrooms. It's probably a lot of confusion.
Rob, do you want to take that one? Dr. Silver,
Yes. So all mushrooms have a very fibrous body. There's a lot of fiber in them, and that fiber that's in the mushrooms contains a special molecule that signals our immune system to work better than it is working. And so there's copious studies in the literature. These molecules are called beta-glucans, and they're unique to fungi and grains and seaweed and yeast. Yeast are also fungi though. And so all fungi have these beta-glucans, and you can take any beta-glucan from any mushroom, and it's going to help improve your immune system function. Some mushrooms have beta-glucans that are a little better for one type of condition or another, but basically that's the basic that's basically the powerhouse in mushrooms in general. But each individual mushroom also produces individual molecules that are unique to that mushroom that may have some special benefits. For instance, there's a mushroom called lion's mane. I don't know if you've heard of this or not. And kind of looks like a brain. And in the old days, the ancients, when they were trying to figure out what plants could be used for, if they had a shape that looked like an organ or something, they would think that maybe that plant had that function. What's amazing is that there was an intuition there in our early ancestors that were able to figure out, what was working or not for them. And so the tradition over the years of foraging for mushrooms and seeing that they benefit them has, developed this culture of using mushrooms medicinally. So because each mushroom has different properties and similar properties, many people who are looking for what you're suggesting, which is kind of a wellness, kind of an all-in-one, maybe a little shotgun type of approach to give a little bit of everything, a little bit of everything that's good, would be a mushroom blend that might contain 3 or 5 or 7 different mushrooms. Our human line contains something we call 5 defenders. And defenders like host, like defending our immune system defense, that sort of thing. So we have 5 of the top mushrooms in there, and it's extremely popular as a product because it has a little bit of everything in it. And it's pretty palatable. Some mushrooms can be bitter, but many mushrooms are not. We have edible mushrooms like shiitake, which is highly medicinal in its properties as well. So many of the mushrooms we use, even the little white button mushrooms, have very potent medicinal properties. But they have to be cooked, and by cooking, you break down the cell wall, which releases these beta-glucans, which then gives them their medicinal value. Joni, I'm sure you have something to add to that. I don't know
Yeah,
if I hear.
no, I agree with Dr. Silver that like starting out. I mean, I love, you know, being proactive about pet health. Is so important. It's we can't do enough for our pets. I truly believe that what we're putting in their bowl, whether it's their food or their water, we're up against environmental pollutants and all kinds of other things. And so
Absolutely.
and what I find is like animals, like they seem to be doing fine about 8 years of age. It's like the wheels start to come off the bus and there's a cruciate injury or there's a mast cell or something else, and it didn't just happen. This is not something that just happened out of the blue. It's been the body has been going through some sort of depletion or imbalance, and so then it will manifest as something. And what mushrooms can do is, like Dr. Silver was describing, like these beta glucans can really support the immune system in this incredible way. And different mushrooms kind of have affinities for different organ systems. For instance, like cordyceps mushroom is very good for the lungs and for the kidneys, but it's also great for the whole immune system. It's great for it's an adaptogen mushroom. Like the lion's mane is great for cognitive function, neurologic issues. It's also great for the gut. Starting out, if you want to be proactive, I agree that starting with a combination, and our 5 Defenders formula has shiitake, maitake, reishi, turkey tail, and chaga. And so each of those mushrooms, they're all very much immune supporting, but they kind of have an affinity for different organs. Some of them are cardioprotective, some of them support liver, kidneys, so taking that, I think, daily proactively, it's almost like I look at it as insurance. It just like my dog, knock on wood, my dog Scruffy has no issues. She's 9 years old, and I'm literally going to knock on wood. Right now she's doing great, but I've got her on a very I have her on a rotating protocol. I use a variety of different foods. There's something different in her bowl with every meal. I give her different kinds of mushrooms. I mix it up. There's Dr. Barbara Fougere, who's a veterinarian who wrote Veterinary Herbal Medicine. She's an Australian veterinarian. We had a wonderful roundtable discussion with her where she talked about seeing much more benefit in when using mushrooms in synergy, like using combinations of mushrooms together, that they really support each other. And also mushrooms with things like CBD goes very well with mushrooms as well. So I think everybody should be giving mushrooms. Everybody should be taking mushrooms themselves and giving them to their pets as well. There's no downside. There's
right. There's no side effects or animals that shouldn't take them or anything like that. I mean, it sounds like
they're mushrooms are functional foods. It's like it's like beets are functional foods. There's different food. They're foods that are also that can be medicinal. And so the only downside if you give too, you don't want to cause any gastric distress by giving too much or by switching things up too soon. But really, they're very safe. And Dr. Silver, do you want to add anything to that? I hope I'm saying everything correctly.
Just one last thing. I think you're that's great information. Mushrooms can be used, just for a kind of a point source problem, maybe for a couple of weeks, and you'll probably get some results from it. But really, for the best results, it's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle supplement. It should be given every day, and the longer it's given, months, years even, the more it trains your immune system to be vigilant and to be prepared and preventative in that function. And so and mushrooms are food. They are. I mean, if you enjoy shiitake mushrooms and oyster mushrooms and if you've never had lion's mane, and you need to try that. That stuff is awesome.
Yeah.
It's really
I have,
very
yeah,
tasty
really
mushroom.
good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've used some
And that they
different
also
things,
have
so.
all these great medicinal properties is wonderful. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, absolutely. No, I have used mushrooms and I've been using them with my pets for a while. I hadn't heard about this
Okay.
line though, and I'm going to definitely be using it just because it's, a little bit more
Yeah.
focused. It has used like behind it. The one I was using didn't have a vet's, stamp
Well,
on it. So
let me sort of, and I'm not trying not trying to be negative about the competition, because I think there's a lot.
Yeah.
I think I'm really happy that there's so many companies out there that are doing this, because it can only bring the whole level of knowledge and interest in mushrooms up, if everybody's involved with it. But there's different ways of cultivating mushrooms, and many companies will take the spores and they grow them on grain. And the grain gets, and the mycelium, which is part of the mushroom life cycle, is the same thing you might see like on bread as a bread mold. That's what mycelium is. But the mycelium for the edible mushrooms, it completely covers the grain, and they take the grain, that spawn, and then they put it on the natural growth medium for that mushroom. For oyster mushrooms, it might be wood. For something like button mushrooms, it's probably a compost type of a substrate. And then they grow them, and then the mycelium at the right time, when the temperature's lower and moisture's right, sends up the mushrooms. And then the mushrooms create spores, but then we eat the mushrooms, and then we take the mushrooms and we eat them or we process them for medicines. But other companies are skipping a step. And so they take the grain that's covered with mycelium, and instead of culturing it on a proper culture medium, they just dry it. So basically, they call dried mycelium on grain a mushroom. It's not. Mushroom is the actual, mushroom-shaped object that then creates the spores, which they then drop and form mycelium, which then ultimately form the mushrooms again. That's our circle of life with the mushrooms. So you want to be sure, because they've done tests for the beta-glucans in the mushrooms that are in the mushrooms versus the mycelium grown on grain, and there's like an 80% difference in their potency in terms of the amount of beta-glucans that are found in one versus the other. I think the mycelium has some medicinal potency, certainly. There have been a couple of studies that indicate it does have some. But, if you're looking for the most potent approach, you need to find mushrooms, not mycelium grown on grain. And there's controversy. There's some companies that just absolutely say the mycelium's the best thing since sliced bread. But, I go by the studies. I go by the evidence. And the evidence doesn't show me that that's true. So, so that's why that's another reason why I wanted to be with this company, because they do it right.
Yeah. And I just wanted to add to what Dr. Silver said, the reason that they do this, the reason that they don't wait for the mushroom to grow, is it takes a long time. Mushrooms don't just, you don't just
yeah.
prepare it and then a week later you have the mushroom coming up. It can take months. And you need a lot of space.
3 to 6 months.
Yeah, 6 months. And you need a lot of space. And the mushrooms are very particular about how they like to grow, how much space they need, etc. And so it's just not really cost effective. And so these companies have discovered that they can cut their time, they can cut their costs by just growing the mycelium, which I guess you could compare. It's not really the roots, but it's like the roots. And imagine that mycelium growing into what's called that substrate Dr. Silver was talking about, and the fingers going all through. You can't separate that from the grain. So they kind of grind the whole thing up.
Okay.
And, my challenge with that is, why not just call it what it is? It's not a mushroom, it's a mycelium. There's the mushroom, the spore, and the mycelium. There's 3 parts to fungi. And
you were there,
what's
and then
that?
I think
you there? Oh, we good? But
I think we lost you, but then you were there. Oh yeah, we lost you.
we lost Dr. Silver. We lost your volume. Yeah.
We can't hear you.
Something I can't
no.
hear you. Oh no!
Why don't we'll probably know when you hook up, and we'll let you know. Like if you want to play with it and see while we'll let Joni talk and then see if it's something.
Okay.
I wonder if your did your earbuds maybe die? Could it be?
Yeah, could it be your earbuds, the battery? Or, you can't hear us.
Oh.
Maybe. Anyway, I'm just going to continue sharing about that. But yeah, my issue with that is like, no, there you are. We just heard your
Yep. There you are.
Okay, yeah, so you can hear me, okay, right?
Yeah, now we can hear you. Yeah.
I'm using these now instead, I'm using these instead of that.
Okay. We can hear
it
you
works.
now.
The microphones.
Yeah.
Okay, it's the quality's okay. We'll stick.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. But anyway,
Okay.
The issue for me is why it's misrepresenting what's in that bottle, and sometimes if people are trying to avoid grains for whatever reason, I mean, a lot of the companies do list that it's mycelium on grain or mog, but there are companies out there that are not even listing that. They're calling it mushroom, and people are buying not knowing really what they're getting. The other thing I'm a big fan of the fruiting body, and that's when that's why I came to work for All Mushrooms, the fruiting body, which is also basically the mushroom. All the traditional, use of mushrooms goes back thousands of years, and it's always been the mushroom that they've been working with, and most of the clinical studies use the mushroom, not the mycelium. So I'm just, like Dr. Silver said, there's probably some wonderful uses for mycelium, but I want to see it isolated from that grain. I want to see it, on its own, and that's a very
when you see
Go ahead, Dr. Silver.
When so many pet parents are looking for grain-free food for their pets, why would they want to feed a supplement that has grains in it? That's kind of my thing. So I think, I'm not faulting these companies, but I think that we need to have transparency in labeling so that the consumer can be aware and they can make the choice as far as what they would want to use for their pet, because that's their choice to make.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I mean, that's why I think I'm gonna be switching over, because I didn't realize this stuff, and I think this is what's so important about hearing you talk, having the two of you with the knowledge and the background, because some of these little pointers, just it's good to educate yourself, but sometimes we miss things. So it is very it's helpful to get the education. And somebody was asking the reading material, and I think
we're going to send you some samples. Yeah. We're going to send you some samples too, so you can try a couple of different brands. We got soft chews as well as capsules.
Oh, that's great. That would be wonderful. Thank you so much. And somebody is asking about
you bet.
Reading material, and it sounds like a good place would be to start with the website, right? Is there anything else that you recommend as far as reading material?
This is such a new area. And, so there aren't a lot of texts that have it focused towards pets. There is a new book that's out recently. I've got it's I don't have it. I don't have it down here. I could show you a copy of it. It's by Chris Hobbs. It's called Medicinal Mushrooms, and it's a new publication. Lots of pretty pictures and very well done. So that would be one good resource. But I do think that our website, Joni and I do spend a lot of time, and we have a naturopath who works with us as well. So we write, articles that have references to citations. We write very scientific articles, and it's a very good, we want to educate the pet parent so they understand and they know better how to provide this emerging therapy for their pets.
Yeah.
Yeah, and somebody was asking, is it usually powder?
Camera's kind of funny.
Okay, yeah, you're fine. You're in focus and everything. But somebody was asking what the form is. Is it usually like a powder form over their food, or do you recommend people really just, if they really want to get into it, is it better to make your own, or what do you think is?
Well, I'll start, Dr. Silver, and you can follow up. So our mushroom extracts are powders that are sold either in capsules, or we also have the powders. Our Real Mushrooms for Pets line, Dr. Silver formulated as capsules that are, and it's very easy because the dosage is on the side of the bottle for pets by weight. You can always open the capsules and sprinkle the powder on the food, mix it in the food. We also have pet chews. If pets don't like the powders, or I like to give the pet chews to my dog as a treat. We have the Relax Chew, which is a combination of lion's mane reishi, was it lemon balm, and catnip. What else is in there, Dr. Silver? Passion flower. Did I get that right?
It has tryptophan and theanine, which are quite potent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's relaxing.
Yeah. And then we have an
it
immune
works well.
chew.
So
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Dr. Silver.
There's a kind of a delay with the sound now, so I'm sorry if I'm interrupting you. I don't mean to. This whole thing with the changeover with the sound. So we're just in the infancy, really. We are just now getting started. And we don't even have all of our capsules completed. And what we're doing is we're doing encapsulated versions of the individual herbs and that 5 defenders that are available for humans. I made the capsules smaller because pets are smaller and they don't need as much of a dose. They're less expensive. And we have the 2 soft chews. But right now we're in the process of developing the entire line and working on that, revisioning it still. So we're also open to hearing from pet parents what their concerns are and what sorts of products they would be most interested in us putting together for them, because we're right in that part now where we get to create it,
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I'll have that in my... Yeah. No, go ahead.
Forgive me.
No, that's
I've got the echo too. I think you were asking about cooking versus supplementing. People can certainly cook mushrooms for their pets, like I said earlier, like any mushroom that's safe for humans is safe for pets. You always want to cook mushrooms because that releases the medicine, really. It kind of breaks down that cell wall. But the thing is, you would have to, in order to equal the amount of the mushrooms that's in our extracted powders, you'd have to cook an awful lot of mushrooms. So if you really want to get the benefits of the medicine, I think adding mushrooms to your pet's food is great. I do it once or twice a week with my dog, but I would not count that as her therapeutic dose of mushrooms per week. Okay. You just can't get enough, I don't believe, through cooking. So I make sure that she gets the desired amount that I want for her of mushrooms through the supplementation, and I do, at this point, she just eats the capsules, I don't even have to hide them. My dog is just, I don't know how I lucked out to get such a great dog that will eat anything, but some, like with other, working with other dogs, like I'll open the capsule, I'll sprinkle it on the food. You can add, some bone broth or, some water. If you're feeding dry food, add some water in the mushroom powder and mix it to make a gravy.
And is it for cats too, the one that the 5 defenders?
Yeah, but it's whether cats are for it. Cats are, cats are cats, and so cats. If dogs come when called, cats take a message and get back to you. So whether they're going to be accepting of it. There's some mushrooms that I think are more palatable for cats than others. One other advantage to using our powders versus doing it yourself is that every dosage, every amount that you give, it's standardized. Every bottle we create, every batch we create, we standardize it so it has the same potency from one bottle to the next, from one batch to the next. And that's, and especially if you're trying to make sure your animal gets enough to have a benefit, that's important.
Yeah.
Yes.
One less thing I have to cook. That's great, in my opinion.
Yes.
It's
Absolutely.
not my favorite activity. So, I mean, it sounds like, so definitely, and I've heard them used for immune system. I've definitely heard people using them for cancer treatment. Are you finding them helpful for things like arthritis and, just joint issues and?
Well, a lot of, I was surprised. We were at the Healthy Pet Expo this March in New York, and I was surprised at how many pet parents would come up to us asking if we had mushrooms for mobility issues, because they aren't really known to be specifically for mobility issues, but they have very strong antioxidant, and many of them have anti-inflammatory properties as well. So in that context, they could, but I wouldn't use them directly to treat a joint. I think they could be part of a protocol that might include some joint lubricants and some antioxidants, and a mushroom that has good anti-inflammatory activity, which is most of it.
Okay.
Yeah. They could
We
supplement.
have calming as a possible. We have healthy digestive system, and mushrooms. The fiber in mushrooms, not only does it contain these great beta glucans, but it's really good food as a prebiotic for our microbiome. And so it benefits them in that regards. And the mushroom powder that we use for the pet products is very rich in this microbiome-friendly fiber, which also contains the beta glucans. So calming, cancer. I think as we get more use of mushrooms, I think we will be able to create more applications for them.
And how does that help with calming? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joni.
Oh no, go ahead. Well, why don't we can answer that question, and then I'll give my shout out to Lion's Mane.
Oh, okay.
For cognitive function. Rob, do you want to answer how does it help? How do the mushrooms help with calming?
I will help up to a point. There's still some of the mechanisms. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to all the mechanisms of action and the molecules and the receptors, and we really have not gotten that information clearly yet about how mushrooms really do create, what the exact molecule is, what is the exact receptor that it docks in. But like with lion's mane, for instance, it contains these molecules called triterpenes and diterpenes. And terpenes are these volatile plant molecules that give plants their flavor, their taste, but they also have biomedical activity. And so it's these triterpenes that can dock on these receptors in our nervous system that help to produce the neurotransmitters that are more calming. I guess that's probably the simplest answer for you. And so lion's mane has a triterpene and a diterpene. Reishi has multiple triterpenes, all of which are known to contribute to the calming effect. Reishi, considered the mushroom of immortality, is used by Zen masters as a meditation aid. So when we say calming, we don't mean sedation at all. We just mean settling. Like the word settle, I think, is really a better word than calm when we talk about the effect of these. And settle is a command we give to our animals. Settle.
I love listening to Dr. Silver nerd out about triterpenes and other other large words. But what I also wanted to add about something pretty incredible about mushrooms. There's specifically lion's mane that I think all aging dogs should be on lion's mane because it's very supportive for cognitive function. And more animals are being diagnosed with dementia, just like humans, it's becoming epidemic, and they don't know if more animals have it or we're just noticing it more. It's being reported more, but I know when I got into veterinary medicine 20 some odd years ago, I'd never heard the term dog dementia, and over the past 5-10 years, I get that question a lot. Do you have anything for cognitive issues, etc.? And lion's mane shows great promise for people and for animals. Plus the fact that it supports the gut. The traditional use of lion's mane was for the gut. They've only discovered more the how supportive it is for the brain more recently. So for that older dog that, maybe they're on Rimadyl or something for their joints, and the fact that the lion's mane gives that gut support, and also helps with cognitive function. I just think all older pets should be on lion's mane, and it's very palatable too. It's a very tasty mushroom, unlike something like reishi, which is a wonderful mushroom. It's just a bitter mushroom, and the medicine is in that bitterness. But animals instinctively avoid bitter, so it can be sometimes a little harder to get it in them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and we have a question. Are there any fillers in the products? And if so, what?
In our powders, no, there are no fillers. This is kind of what we're referring to when we talk about the mycelium on grain, because in that case, it's not just mycelium, it's also the grain filler. If we're looking at capsules, in order to stuff that powder into the little capsule, they have to add what they call a flow agent in order to allow it to go through the machinery. They're non-toxic and quite safe, and have been used. They're in all supplements that come in capsules. They have these flow agents. There's some people that get really get kind of bent out of shape over anything that's added to it. But these have been used for many years. There's no evidence of any toxicity to them.
Okay. And I'm just making sure I didn't miss any questions here. You complement each other well. Yes, they do. And so Dr. Silver?
And we don't just compliment each other, we also compliment each other.
Yeah, we compliment.
That's important.
We like each other. It helps. It helps. Yeah.
And by the way, if you want to give the show a compliment, give us a thumbs up, and subscribe and hit the bell to be notified about future episodes. And this
absolutely,
we talk about all things holistic pet care, in addition to animal communication and live animal communication episodes, which I don't do when I'm interviewing people, but you can find all the information in the description. So are you finding that a lot of people are
Go ahead. That's okay. It was a diversion. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, this kind of is taking us in another direction, so feel free to go back if you do. Do you find that people are coming to your site and not knowing a vet near them that uses mushrooms? Is it starting to pick up and vets are using them?
Well, I'm reaching out now to the veterinary community. I've been educating the veterinary community for years on nutraceuticals and cannabis and a variety of other integrative medicine topics. Last 20 years I've been doing that. So now we are attending conferences. I'm speaking for a number of hours on medical mushrooms, along with other topics of interest like CBD and nutraceuticals and chronic kidney disease. So we're starting that educational process. We're going to be providing an online webinar that'll be available for a year to veterinarians. So we're trying to up their level of knowledge, because veterinarians, by and large, when you say mushroom to them, they think poisonous mushrooms, because that's what all veterinarians see, is the dog coming in vomiting from having eaten some white mushrooms in the backyard. So we need to re-educate them that way. And one of the first things I'm going to be doing with the company is doing a safety study, just feeding the mushrooms to a group of dogs at very, very high doses and doing blood tests and showing there's no impact on that. I think that'll be really helpful as well. But what I was going to digress on, Anne, was I just want to say that when I'm not currently in practice, but for the 35 years that I was in practice, I relied heavily, but there were quite a few animal communicators that I worked with that really, I felt, helped us unravel some of these very complex issues and these complex cases. And I've always learned never to discount anything. That there's always some truth in every bit of information, whether it's from a pet parent who doesn't really know how to describe what they're seeing, or from an animal intuitive who just gets messages but may not put them together in a completely medically diagnostic way, So it's up to me to communicate. And I still have some animal intuitives that refer to my website.
Wonderful, definitely. Well, and I'll definitely be sending people there.
So keep up the good work.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And I think it's a good point too, just to make that you mentioned that sometimes I always say to people, might not understand what I'm getting. I'm just going to give you the information as it comes to me, because I may not be able to make sense of it. And my job really, when it comes to medical intuitive, is not to diagnose or treat that. I leave that to the vets, but I will give you what the pet gives me. What are they feeling? Where am I picking up in the body? So, and we really appreciate vets who don't discount us. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Every vet I ever worked with was, we had a
most integrative vets don't.
Yeah. We had a referral list of animal communicators. And just to go back to what you were asking about, finding veterinarians that use mushrooms, or do people come that are having a hard time? We do have a referral list. So if people are looking for a veterinarian, they can go to our website and send us an email, and we can help them find a veterinarian that's either in their area, or more and more veterinarians are doing telehealth. And I just want to give a shout out. Dr. Silver has his own website, the Well-Pet Dispensary, where he has some of his own products, and wonderful. He also has the real mushrooms, and
Oh, great. Okay, I didn't realize that. So I'll have that in the description as well for people if you want to go down there and use that link.
He never says it. I always shout. I shout it.
Good.
It's a great website.
I don't think it's appropriate to market my website when we're doing a podcast for real mushrooms.
I know.
But she can.
Oops.
So the website is, again, I'll have it in the description, but what is your website again?
Well-Pet, realmushrooms.com is the mushroom website. If you want to check my place out, it's Well-Pet-Dispensary.com, just like it sounds, a dispensary for the Well-Pet. Well-Pet Dispensary, one word.
Okay.
And just to follow up regarding education, if you go to the realmushrooms.com website, and across the top of the page, it'll either say, I think it says learn. There's different links to shop, or but there's a link that says learn, LEARN, learn. And if you click on that,
did I spell it wrong?
And I think it's SARY, by the way. Well, dispensary.
Yeah, that was never my
strong point. ARY.
Math and spelling, not my strong point.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a link, it won't work. But
and I'll in the description I'll put the real link.
Okay. Click on learn, and you can go and then click on blog, and you'll pull up. There's so many. There's the veterinary information. Dr. Silver just wrote a wonderful blog on turkey tail that just came out a few days ago, where he really dives deep into the research. And but there's also just there's blogs on what is an extract, and what to look for in a quality mushroom, etc. Like everything from beginner information on mushrooms all the way up to some really pretty complicated information on mushrooms for someone who really wants to nerd out on it. So a lot of information there.
Fabulous. I was curious because I know I think I tried the mushrooms with my cats. The dogs are taking it, but the cats, they rejected, I think. No, one of them will use them, the other won't. So I kind of but they share food sometimes. So anyway, are you eventually going to try to put them into drops, like an extract, so that you can just hit them up and run away?
Well, nothing's off the table. Nothing's off the table,
Okay.
and being able to come up with a successful line for cats, I think, is very important, because cats are very special and very challenging. When it comes, as a product developer, a product formulator, the holy grail is formulating something that a cat will eat.
Or that his dog Ollie will eat.
It's whether it works or not, who cares? We just want to know they'll eat it,
Exactly.
Yeah. Rob runs everything by his dog
like
Ollie.
we mentioned, well, yeah, I've got a fat lab who didn't like the first recipe I made up with the soft cheese, so we had to change that.
Oh, that's great.
But I think as far as cats, I think Joni, let's make a note to send her some lion's mane powder or some or capsules rather, or we don't have the
Thank
cordyceps
you.
capsules yet. We still have several that we're waiting to have manufactured because we still have supply chain issues with even though we're manufacturing it, getting it to us. So, but the lion's mane capsules, you can open those and you can mix them in with the food. And my advice when it comes to introducing something new to a kitty cat is because cats are more their their livers don't detoxify toxins as well as dogs, horses, and humans. So over the millennia, they've had to be very suspicious about any new smells in their food. And if you've ever noticed, when you ever feed them, rather than just going down and gobbling up their food like the dog will do, they sniff it. Same food, same bowl, same place, same time. They still sniff it before they eat it. This is their little little toxicity check. So to introduce something new, you start with just a teeny pinch, so they get somewhere in their olfactory apparatus, they get that smell, but not so much to spoil the taste of the treat. And maybe adding something that they're really hot for, if they like a little bit extra tuna or, a little bit of chicken, baby food or whatever, that gets them hotter for it, so that makes them more likely. And then over time, you gradually increase the amount you give to them, and hopefully you can increase it to the point that you'll be giving them a functional dosage.
Okay.
That's my advice.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, that's good advice. Great. And someone asks, shelf life. Do they last a while?
Is it 2 years, Dr.
Silver?
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have even thought that long. So that's great.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And I mean, they need to be stored properly, but they're very heat tolerant.
Okay. And I'm just curious, have you had any exciting stories, just ones that you think about where people were having a problem and they started using these and things turned around?
Every single day.
We have quite a few.
Honestly, the Real Mushrooms, it's an online company and people can go on and leave reviews. And every time somebody leaves a review on the website, our Slack channel pings and the review comes in, and I literally daily I'm seeing reviews from people talking about the benefits that not only themselves, like a lot of human wonderful feedback, but I mean, tumors that are shrinking, things like that.
For her, Joni, maybe?
What's that? What's that, Dr.
Like
Silver?
maybe an individual case? Do you have like an individual case? Do you have like an individual case that you remember? The sounds.
I mean, just the other case of a dog that was just given like a few months to live, and and who knows, I mean, these are all, the thing is this is all anecdotal, we need the studies that are going to back this up, but this dog was given just a few months to live. I think it was hemangiosarcoma.
Yeah.
And the dog 11 months later was still going, and this pet parent was giving the turkey tail religiously, and also they were doing something called Yunnan Bayao, which it kind of stops bleeding. But they were convinced that the mush that this protocol that they were using was what was helping their pet survive. And their vets are like, yeah, keep doing it. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. So, and we get that all the time.
I'm working with a hemangiosarcoma patient.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm working with a hemangiosarcoma patient right now who is experiencing, we're all frozen. We were all frozen there for a second.
Oh, okay. And could you maybe just tell people who don't know what that is, what it is?
Yes, it's a cancer of the spleen. It's very common in dogs, and it's very aggressive, and they generally don't live more than a month or two once they've diagnosed it. The spleen ruptures and their belly gets filled with blood. They get very weak and anemic. And then if the spleen's not removed, it'll rupture again. But even if the spleen's removed, then the metastases from that abdominal metastases from that bleed, will wind up dooming them anyway. So this is a dog they chose not to remove the spleen, and we have it on high doses of turkey tail and Chinese herbs and Yunnan Bayao and CBD and actually THC. And so far, we're just amazed. Dog's doing great.
Oh, that's fabulous. Wonderful.
And that's been, I think, 4 months now.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And I lost what I was going to ask you. Oh, is there funding coming in to do more studies? Are you getting the funding?
Well, the company will be funding.
The company we're
studies.
looking, I mean, that's the wonderful thing about real mushrooms is that they're so committed to education, and they're also extremely committed to evidence. You know, that we really want to be evidence based. So, you know, it looks like they're going to fund some studies for us, which will be great.
Great.
Yeah.
And we will have those studies performed, you know, at like the Lincoln Memorial University's vet school, for instance, where, you know, I have a faculty position so that it will be unbiased. Because, you know, when a company pays for research, there's always this kind of stigma that maybe there's some kind of a bias, you know, because that's where the money comes from. We want to make sure there is no bias with these studies. We want it to be a good contribution to the literature. You know, and we know that it will reflect well on our products because they are such high quality.
Yeah, it would be great to see it just become more, you know, I know you'll need to do that before it just becomes something that gets approved and that veterinarians just start to use as a matter of course. It would be great to see that.
Yes. Yeah. And first they have to know they're safe. They have to really know. There has to be white paper, you know, so they call the clinical studies white paper that shows that you can take this amount of mushrooms and, you know, this dosage and that it's going to be okay. Yeah.
Cool. And I'm just
and the thing is that with pet food, the FDA is different in how they regulate that than how they regulate human food. So mushrooms for human use are generally accepted as safe, generally recognized as safe by the FDA, but in pets, it's not an approved ingredient. So even though it is safe, because we know it's safe in humans, we can't use it in food for that reason. So one of the steps that we would use to get the FDA, or actually the AFCO, to approve mushrooms as an ingredient for pet food are safety studies.
Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting. I didn't realize that they couldn't put them in food.
Yeah.
And so much information. And is there anything that we haven't talked about that you think we should? Anything important? I'm sure there's tons, but you know, what are we? Is there anything we've missed that you think we need to?
Well, you know, the 800-pound gorilla in the room is psilocybin. Because, you know, a lot of people these days, it's getting a lot of headlines because it seems like it's helping humans who have PTSD or depression. And, you know, we have similar types of mental health conditions in our pets like the CCD and other issues. And so the question is, can it help our pets? But we don't have any kind of information yet from anyone using it in pets, and we're a bit worried about I mean, dogs don't like getting high. They don't like THC. You know, how would the psilocybin affect them as well? But I do know that there is a study being put together with military dogs that have PTSD, applying the psilocybin to them. But I don't know anything more than that. But when people say shrooms and say mushrooms, you know, for veterinarians, the first thing they think is poisonous. But the first thing most consumers think, you know, is magic mushrooms.
Yeah, magic
so
mushrooms.
I just wanted to make sure that you understood that we, as a company, we are not making the magic mushrooms.
Right.
Although if we
Big
got a
difference,
license for it, we might. Well, we're a Canadian company, so we are pursuing a license in Canada for growing psilocybin for medical practitioners in Canada, and that may happen. We're waiting to hear back from Health Canada, but I think that might be the one thing that we haven't discussed that is on the minds of many people when you say mushrooms. You know.
Yeah, but to me that's fascinating because I deal with a lot of animals with what you might, you know, call PTSD. And I mean, even, you know, I have a dog who went through a trauma that it's just a slow process. I even see it in my cat who was in a shelter for like a year. And then she went with somebody who was a good person, but she had to do some traveling. And I see these little, these reactions in her that we try to address with things like CBDs and energy work and acupressure and animal communication. And they help to an extent, but I'm also a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm very interested in things like, mushrooms and just different ways we can help people with, ketamine and things like that. So, I think it would be great to see something like that, if it can be used with animals, to try to get them over these like humps, these walls, these things that they just can't seem to.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to see it. I think
concurrently with some kind of behavioral modification.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
I think in the next few years we're gonna see, I know of some vets that are using psilocybin in small doses, but they're not for their trying it out on their own. They're not going to come out and say they are, because for obvious reasons. But I think over the next few years, it's going to become more. It's going to come more to the forefront for humans and potentially for animals. Yeah.
Very cool. Anecdotally, what are they saying about it? What have they seen any obvious changes yet?
Yeah, relief from anxiety. Changes in behavior. Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. Wow.
Yeah. Kind of like the same with people. Yeah.
That's
So
wonderful.
I'm excited what Dr. Silver mentioned, this study that's being done with dogs coming back from war. I mean, imagine the trauma that they're dealing with, just like the soldiers coming back. So I think they're like the perfect testing
group.
Test group. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's fabulous.
And an interesting thing, I find very interesting, is that just psilocybin in general. I was talking to somebody yesterday. It's a very bipartisan topic. When you think of magic mushrooms or shrooms, maybe you think it's, those liberals or whatever, and I don't want to get political, but actually, a lot of the lobbying groups for psilocybin are from the wounded warriors, from the soldiers, which, which might be more aligned with some of the more conservative thinking. And so this is actually an issue that both sides of the political divide actually want to see. They want to see legalization. So
and hopefully it'll make it that much easier to get things pushed through when they're
absolutely
studied. Great. Well, this is there's so much here. Hope, because that's my thing about, part of why I started this show was to have people on to talk about hope, because that's, what I say to my clients when they let me know there's been a diagnosis, and I just, like, well, there's things out there. Let's, there's especially, let's look at all the holistic things that you can use to support your pet. There's a lot. So this just, this adds to the toolbox, and it's wonderful. And I just really appreciate you both being here to talk about it and the work that you're doing. And I encourage everyone to check out the websites in the descriptions, the Real Mushroom and the Real Pet Dispensary.
Well-Pet Dispensary, yeah.
Well-Pet Dispensary. And those links will be in the mushrooms. And please let us know in the comments.
Thank you so much for having us on today.
Oh, absolutely. This has been fun. We've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
My pleasure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's been wonderful. Thank you so much. And everybody, feel free to let us know in the comments if you tried mushrooms and, if they've helped your pet. And, we'd love to hear what your thoughts are on the show. And thank you so much, Joni and Dr. Silver, for being here.
Our pleasure.
Our pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Absolutely.